Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dorm Room Ventures. Today, I'm joined by someone who has truly mastered the art of networking and getting into the right rooms, the CEO of Melagen Labs, Mohammed Hunain. At just 19 years old, Mohammed has built an incredibly successful space tech startup, Melagen Labs, where he's pioneering Melagen-based applications to fight space radiation for satellite technology. His journey has been nothing short of inspiring. He was part of the Techstars DC Accelerator class of fall 2024, and just returned from speaking at the 2025 Leap Tech Conference in Saudi Arabia, one of the biggest tech events in the world. Funny enough, I first met Mohammed completely by chance at a New York City Tech Week event back in October 2023, I believe, before all of this. But since then, he hasn't just attended Tech Week events, he's hosted his own, spoken at several more, and built a network that has propelled him to success. But getting from that first event in 2023 to where he is now did not happen overnight. Mohammed had to navigate the maze of networking, connect with the right people, and climb the complex ladder of the startup world. Today, he's here to share his insights on how both founders and students alike can master networking, build real relationships, and position themselves in the right rooms to create opportunities that can change everything. Mohammed, welcome to Dorm Room Ventures. Thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here, man. It's so great to see what you're up to, and excited for it.
Of course. I really appreciate it. So before we hop into, the main gist of this conversation, I want to hear more about Melagen Labs. So what is it that you guys do? What is your specific role? And how did you really come up with the main idea?
Yeah, definitely. I am CEO and co-founder at Melagen Labs, where we're building radiation shielding for satellites and astronauts. It's like space shields to protect you from radiation in space. The problem really is that when astronauts or satellites go to space, they get bombarded with radiation. 38% of satellites fail every year, and if you're an astronaut, you double your chances of getting cancer in space. And essentially, the current shielding methods that we have to protect from radiation are old, ineffective, and doesn't work for the next decade to come, where space exploration is just going to boom because 24,000 plus satellites are going to be launched in a few years. We're gonna have 30 space tourism companies launching hundreds of space turrets. So the space exploration era is getting exciting over time. So aluminum, which is an industry standard to shield from radiation, just doesn't help. So that's something that inspired me to start Melagen Labs. I was a project manager at NASA Space. We were building a Mars rover concept, and radiation there was a top challenge. And it is also one of my passion to become an astronaut, go to space. So that's like an ultimate goal I am going towards. Hopefully one day we'll go to space. And if I were to become an astronaut, go to space, this is something that I wouldn't want to worry about after training my whole life to become an astronaut. So those were a few things that pushed me to start Melagen Labs. And today we're a team of about 7, and it all started 9 to 10 months ago. And we've raised friends and family around enough to get us to our next milestone. And we're actually very pumped about 2 major space launches that we're doing this year. So things have been moving forward, and really enjoying the whole journey.
That's absolutely amazing. I'm very happy for your wild success. And, going into that, when we first met, actually, I remember you mentioned to me saying, we have to build a space tech startup. So at that time, it was just under the idea of potential idea for a space tech startup. So, you've come a long way, man. And, I want to hear a little bit about going all the way back to the beginning. What was sort of your introduction to the networking world? Was it that tech week that I met you at? Was it before that? What did that whole space look like before anything started?
Yeah, so those were the days when I was, just getting started. And I think that's about 8-9 months ago too, when we first met. And I didn't have any network. I was just fresh out of high school. I did had a few connections in the education industry because I was student body president in my high school senior year, and also went on representing about 38,000 students in the District 25 in New York City. So I had some connections in the education industry, but then while I was researching radiation, I was really excited to learn more about what's the problem, how are we fixing it today. And I was doing a program, it's called TKS, Still Knowledge Society. really recommend all the young people, look into it, and I think you're gonna find it really cool. And you probably remember me talking about TKS, even during that event. So it was then when everything started. I was pushed to actually look for people who could help me with my research. So I was doing a lot of cold outreach, emails, LinkedIn, and through that program, I had my own mentor who's actually business development lead on the team now. So I pitched him later on. So he joined the team later on. But it was just then when I really needed to learn more. I was really curious about it. So I would just, write emails to scientists, CEOs of actual satellite operators and manufacturing companies. I got in touch with Redvar Space, Amazon Kuiper. So it was just because of those cold emails. And I came across many events during New York City Tech Week, I think. And there were a few that, stood out to me that could help me with my research. So I decided, let's go. And serendipity happens. And here we are.
No, it's absolutely fantastic. And, going into that and looking at sort of wide scope, we all talk about, the fact that networking has an effect on every aspect of our life. They say your network is your net worth. Now, I want to hear from your perspective, other than and outside of Melagen Labs, how has this sort of networking affected your life?
Well, some of my best friends are from those networking events, because I think when you go for a networking event, it just really depends on, what's your goal. So going into an event, it's really important that you write down or like think about your specific goals with, specific people that you want to meet, certain categories, etc. But I think serendipity is a big thing, and we'll get into we'll get into that later. The type of people that I met and where we are now. But I think some of my best friends are from those networking events. Like you, man, we've been in touch ever since then. And, most of the times we catch up on life and how things are going, not so much on work, right? So you get to make really cool friends, and friends that will also, push you forward and help you get to your goals and inspire you to become something. So I think it's not just about work. It's also, like you said, life and the type of people that you meet, and then following up with them, staying in touch.
Yeah, very well said, honestly. Just like you said, just by that one event we met at, things have, continued down the line over a year afterwards. So that's fantastic.
Yeah,
And
even from the, life perspective or like friend relationship, we also got to work on some cool projects. And it's different thing where they are now, but, it was still awesome.
no, definitely. And then on top of that, we're able to kind of connect our different sort of networks and connections together. If you need to speak to someone, I'd let you know. If I need to speak to someone, you'd let me know. It's crazy how
Exactly.
everything kind of comes together like that. That's fantastic, man. That's fantastic. But yeah, and so I wanted to touch back on a point that you were mentioning previously, kind of when we were talking about your intro to networking. It sounds like it was a lot of brute force grit work. You're sending emails, emails, cold approaches to CEOs and, people in the space tech field, people that are working in space sciences. That kind of made me remember where I was several years back when I didn't have a network as well. And I wanted to pose a question for all of our listeners as to how students should approach networking if they don't have an existing network. It seems very, daunting when you don't have any network. So how would you recommend, those students take the first few steps?
Yeah, I think it's really important for you to get specific on your goals first, and why you actually need to, go to a certain event. Why do you actually need to actually, email that person, and you're hoping that, okay, they'll get back to you or something like that. Because once you have a clear plan about, okay, this is something that I want from this event, or this is what I want after meeting with that person, and then making it clear to them as well, it goes a long way. So, having that clear end goal is the first step, I would say. And then, building lists of companies where your, targets really work at, and then just sending an email to them. It's that easy. there are a few tools out there that help you find those emails. So like the one that I use the most of the time is called Contact.out. You literally just go there, you connect it to your LinkedIn, and then with just a few steps, you're also able to find their email. And all you have to do is draft up an email and send it to them. Again, you have to be very specific about your goals, why you want to talk to them. And it's also, not important when you actually have to, network. Best time to network is when you actually don't need that person or that network already, because you get to, build that relationship over time. And once you, think that, okay, they can help you in a certain way, you reach out to them because the network or the relationship has been developed over time. So I think, to start with, you got to build out your profile. Okay, this is something that I'm looking for. And then build a LinkedIn profile based on that. Make it very specific. Okay, if you're looking for an internship, going to events might not be the best option to start with. Look for program managers at those companies, send a connection request, I believe, and reach out to them, because that goes a long way, because it'll set you up from different people. And then if you send your portfolio, that's even better, and will definitely put you ahead of people. But then if you're a founder actually, and you are looking to talk to that person for some insights or advice, then it's completely different, right? You gotta email people, you gotta go to events, you gotta put yourself out there. And this is something a very few founders are doing. Meeting with people, I used to think that, okay, that's not gonna help my business, that's not gonna help me at all. What's gonna happen if I have a conversation with Zaki? That's it. After a few days, we won't even talk because we're not friends. But that completely changed my mind when I was just like putting myself out there. My mentor, Hari Mahash, actually pushed me to go to these events. So it was like, for me, very aggressive. Once a week, I had to go out, meet with, a bunch of people. And then it's also about the notion that you're not going to meet the type of people you're looking for with just one event. You need to have, the thought of serendipity needs to happen. And it's going to take some time to get to the point where you want, and you have to go to a few events. So I think building that first profile of what you're looking for, what's the goal, would help you navigate through, okay, these are the events I want to go to, and these are the people that I want to meet with. Once you have that, then it's pretty easy, because people will get back to you. If you send an executive at a company an email that, okay, this is my name, I'm a student at this university, and I'm looking to get, advice on that aspect from you. Do you have 15 minutes of your time? In that email, they're likely to get back to you. Instead, if you just reach out, okay, my name is Mohammed, I'm a student at this university and would like to request, 20 minutes of your time, they're likely not going to respond to that email or actually get back to you. So again, be specific about your goals, and put yourself out there, build a strong LinkedIn profile, and just reach out to people and go to events. That's how I started, literally.
Of course, very well said. You gave all our listeners the specific steps. That's a very, detailed structure and outline for how to do it. And then going more into that, so going off your point about, making those initial connections in really any scene. You mentioned both the founder and student scene, whether it's, a tech week event, a founder event, or if it's a job fair that you're looking for an internship. A lot of time we find a wave of people, and there's that small subgroup of people that everyone wants to talk to, whether they're recruiters, whether they're the heads of large startups. And when you're working and trying to connect with those people, you really have to work to kind of set yourself out of the crowd, make a lasting impression on that person. So what's your advice on how to make a lasting impression on someone when you're just starting out in the network field?
Yeah, definitely. That's really important and great question, man. I think it just really depends on your introduction, or like how you reach out. At a networking event, you only have few minutes, maximum 5 minutes when you're talking to somebody, because then you got to move up to new person, or you got to let them go, and so they can talk to the next person as well. But so it's literally just like your intro or how you reach out to them or how you approach them. If you go up to somebody and be like, oh, hey, my name's Mohammed, or like, what are you working on? And like, what's your job? That makes it a little awkward. And that sets the whole narrative of the conversation like very awkward. But if you were to reach out to them or like approach them in a way where when it's like casual or like, oh, how's that event going? I just got here. Things like that. It just opens up so many different hats for conversations to go on. And then it doesn't feel like needy or you're looking to get something from them. Because at that point, your goal is to really get to know the person. So ask them a ton of questions about their work and, what inspired them or what's their goal to be at that event. So things like that. I think that's really big when you approach people. And if you get the intro right or like have a 30-second elevator pitch of, what you're working on, something like, hi, my name is Mohammed. I'm working on radiation shielding. And I came to the event to meet with, specific people or certain people, and I'm looking to get that out of that event. And it's really nice to meet you. Tell me more about your work or what got you here, things like that. So I think it's just the way you, narrate it, like the people say, right? So that helped me personally a ton.
Definitely. And yeah, and you mentioned one point that I think it's just so important to emphasize to our listeners, which is the idea of an elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Regardless of where you're trying to go or who you're trying to talk to, an elevator pitch is just so important because like you said, with these people, you barely have any time. You have tops 5 minutes to speak with them and get your point across. So how do you recommend structuring that elevator pitch? You just given us an example for what you're working on. Is there a certain structure? Is there, things you want to leave out, things you want to put in? How do you form that?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, too long. It could be, 30 seconds long, and your name, if you're a student, at what university, or like how old are you? Because, people have notion of age as a limiting factor. It's actually not. People love young people. And, if you're a young person working on some really big, cool problem, I think you should mention, okay, I'm, 19 years old, or I'm 18 years old, 21, whatever, or I'm a sophomore at, this university. Mention that, and then just the project that you're working on. Those are always 3 priorities for me when I am going to talk to someone. And, it really depends on who you also want to tell your age. If you're a founder and you're talking to a potential customer, you might not want to add that, okay, I'm, this year is old, because that definitely impacts your relationships over time. But if you're a student looking for an internship and just looking to meet with people, it's really important to highlight that. And it's just your personal perspective or your personal goal as well, if you want to talk about that. But, most of the time, my goal is to talk about, okay, my name is Mohammed. I am co-founder or CEO at Melagen Labs, where we're building radiation shielding engineered at nanoscale. And we built it with nanomaterials and some sort of natural composite. So like things like that, you just mix it up and it flows really well.
Of course. Very well said. And you just mentioned a really important point that I kind of want to dive into a deeper discussion. The idea of age, being in the scene as a student or generally just a younger person, especially in the wave of much older people. I bet you're very much used to it being a founder, especially, at the recent Leap event, there are probably people 3-4 times your age there. So what sort of, I should say, advantages do students have when networking compared to people that are older than them or professionals in the scene? Are there any sort of advantages or higher stakes that they get in this regard?
Yeah, if we think about it, what's the challenge most people have, right? Getting highlighted or getting ahead of people, right? Or getting some attention. That's always a challenge. But with the age being, someone young, it's a factor that is sort of an unfair advantage. That's just how I look into it. And then, of course, it's, hats off to people who are working on cool things and, they're still in high school or college. But that is something that should be used as leverage because, like I mentioned, there are more people who will support you for being young and doing cool stuff than people who will hate you. I've met with so many different people who said, okay, you should be in college studying, some physics or, some maths, whatever. But, if you have a passion and you're willing to take actions on it, people will recognize that and they will support you in any way possible. People on my team, they all have PhDs. People on my advisory board, they have raised millions of dollars for their companies. They've exited companies. They worked at Apple and have their own venture-backed businesses as well. So it's really to, highlight that age shouldn't be a limiting factor, or age shouldn't be taken as a limiting factor. There are more resources for young people than, for founders who are starting a company out of college or later in their life. But if you're a founder or person looking or working on a cool project or idea, there are there are a ton of resources. YC actually came out with Summer Fellows Grant. So if you're working on a cool technical project, you can actually reach out to Y Combinator, which is world's best accelerator for companies. And you can actually get a grant. It only takes 1,000 to 2,000 to take some action on your cool idea. And like I mentioned, people love that. You just gotta take actions, go out there and show what young blood is capable of, and people will support. So age is not, it's just a number. So you just gotta get after the information.
Of course, yeah. You got to show them that, like you said, the young blood spirit, just the
exactly
the drive and ingenuity in that
regard.
And
we'll move forward. But there are a few more advantages that come with being a young founder or a young person working on a project, because you get to go all in. You get to put all your energy, because you don't have many responsibilities, right? You don't have a family to take care of. You have like most of your time that you can dedicate towards your project or whatever you're working on. And VCs actually love that, because you get to, spend 100 hours or 80 hours a week, and you get to make so much fast progress on it. So I think you should definitely be, whoever's working on cool projects, technical or not, they should be proud of everything they've done.
So yeah, I just wanted to go into one of those points that you just mentioned. This kind of deviates from the general topic, but I think it's important to be mentioned. What is your advice, given what you've shared, on founders or students that say that they want to start working on a startup idea they have after college, at a time that they have maybe a little bit more stability, but also they have more risk?
Yeah, I think I'm going to just say it right away. If you believe that, okay, there is a certain project that you want to do, but you want to do it after college, you're probably not, super passionate about it. You probably don't care too much about the problem. So if you are not going to do it now, there are high chances that you're probably not going to do it after college as well. Because after college, you're going to be like, oh, I need a job to sustain myself. And this is true. You need a job after college, 100%. Then it's going to be a full-time job. You're not going to have too much time out of your schedule to actually work on your own projects. So it's very difficult to work on anything, personal after college, unless you have a very flexible job. So that just depends on, how you're planning after college. But I think the best time to actually do research on your personal projects, or, building something cool that you believe that can, go big, is in, high school or during college. Because you have more flexibility. If you drop out of college, let's plan something, Zaki, for example, you have a good project in mind that you want to do, and you're super passionate about it, and you're willing to actually drop out, and you actually do it for a year. You spend 12 months going, full time on that project, and it goes big. It's only good things that can happen, right? Nothing's gonna bad happen. You get to raise funds, you get to, join, best accelerators out there, you get to build network. That's actually just gonna help you, and people will appreciate it. Whereas if you were to, not drop out, and just continue 4 years college, you're actually losing that opportunity. Now going back, if you were to fail, and if your idea was not to take off, high chances actually you still will have, a ton of projects done, ton of progress made. You would know how to manage a team. You would know how to make real progress. You would actually learn real world skills. You would have a good network. And that'll actually help you get a job faster than somebody, who did Harvard's, engineering or MIT engineering. So I think building real projects, building real skills matters a lot. And this is something, unfortunately, most colleges don't focus much on. It's just very unfortunate, honestly. But I think if you're passionate about something, if you're curious and you have the grit and you're willing to learn new things, I think you should definitely, think about working on some few projects, that you're really passionate about and execute on those. And it's also very important to look into when's the best time to actually drop out or take break from college. Because if you're actually just starting out and you're like, okay, I'm going to drop out. You started a project yesterday and you're like, okay, I'm going to drop out now, or like the very next day. It's probably not the best step. You should, I think, work part-time during college on your idea or project or whatever that is. And once you actually start getting commercial traction, by commercial traction, I mean good feedback from potential customers, because you would want to talk to a lot of them. There's a really great book. It's called The Mom Test. I think everybody should read that who's, looking to actually start a company or build a company. It's literally teaches you how to talk to customers, and you won't learn that in college. So once you start getting actual traction there, and you have a few meetings with investors, you build a relationship with them, then I think it's the best time to, call it off and go full time on that. Because, later down the road, you're like, oh, damn, I'm not getting enough traction, or, the idea doesn't have feasible or, a path for proper, growth in the future. There's no one willing to buy, then there is, of course, something that you learn, but then it's just not best use of your time, I would say.
100%, very well said. And, the idea of where focuses lie of institutions and colleges is actually something I went in a lot of depth with in our last episode with Rob Cummings. It was a point that he mentioned as well. So I guess it's a similarity between, these two different spaces. And so kind of tying things back to the main topic, and still staying on that idea of student perspectives or young founder perspectives, what are, from what you've seen, some common misconceptions in regards to networking for students or student founders? For example, it's only for job hunting, it's only for extroverts. Are there any sort of misconceptions you see?
Yeah, I think, let's tap into what you just mentioned. It's only for job hunting or, to meet with specific people or anything like that. That's actually not true, because networking, like, what is networking? We got to look into that as well, right? Networking is, to me, really meeting with people, learning about what other people are working on, how you can actually help them, and how networking in a way is also, meeting friends. Classes are networking. College is network. You're just meeting with people. Every, networking type, I would say, have a different intent to it. If you're, hanging out, going to clubs or things like that, that is networking still. Partying, that is still networking. It's just the intent is different. And that goes back to what we talked about. You need to have, clear intents or clear goals about what you want. So from there, you actually get to navigate what do you want. So I think starting there, and then that's like the biggest misconception, right? So something to think about, that networking is not just for job hunting. You actually get to make real connections or lifelong friends. I actually know a few people they met at networking events, like actual tech networking events here in New York City, and they kept in touch, and then so that's a factor. Not saying okay, you should go to networking events to find your partner or something like that. That's actually not how it should be done. But like I said, serendipity, right? It happens. Another is we touched upon it already, which is age, right? We went deep into it. Age is not a limiting factor. You're not a bug. You're actually a feature, and people will feature you as well. Like they'll highlight you. And one of the things that I wish I had done earlier was reaching out to organizers of the conferences or the events and asking them, okay, I'd love to volunteer at your event. Is there any way I could, participate or contribute to the, whole vision? And, you would expect they will say no because you're young, but they'll actually say yes and they'll support you. Most of the time, they're going to say yes. And few of them will actually fly you out if the event is in another city or another state or wherever that is, because then you're actually contributing to the conference and you're helping. And then you actually get a lot more exposure because you get to be on the stage, even if you're, MC or hosting a panel. You get to be on the panel. You get to talk to people about your project on the main stage. So that gets you instant or like ton of exposure. And you also have a speaker badge, which means you could go to speaker area or speaker lounge and get to meet with, industry experts. And that's something that I took ton of advantage of whenever I had a speaker's badge. And I would get it by actually just reaching out to the speakers or the organizers that, okay, I want to speak at this conference or I'd love to help out at that conference or event. And, there was that one time when I was checking in everybody. So I got to meet with literally everybody when, people were coming in, and it was a space tech event. And after that, I had known everybody, and people were actually coming up to me after I, introduced everybody on the panel that, okay, there are these people, but then there's this Mohammed working on this project. And then people were actually reaching out to me then, after they went. So that's really huge. So again, networking is literally what you make out of it, and age is not a limiting factor. So those are, I think, the misconceptions. So
that's
we
awesome.
gotta fix
and
that.
Of course, and kind of bouncing off of that point, and going to kind of more specific examples, what sort of networking mistakes do you see in student founders or job seekers? What sort of mistakes do they make, whether from your experience or things that you've seen in that whole networking space?
Yeah, definitely. So I think now following up, we miss that very often, right? You get to meet with people, even on a weekly basis. You meet with hundreds of new people, potentially. Even in college, you get to meet with people. But if you don't follow up with them, you miss that opportunity, right? You have a great conversation with me, but then, after that, you didn't even follow up. We didn't talk more. So I think best way to follow up is have a newsletter where you send it out to people you meet with every month or bi-weekly, whatever that is. Send them your personal updates, how you grew, what mindsets you applied, or what new things that you learned, and progress on your projects, literally. And what are your asks? So like 3 things, and categorize it. This is something that happened in the past. This is something that is happening now, and this is something that'll happen next. And this is where I need your help. And you send it out, personally, or just add them to an email list. And you could do it using Substack and just send it out on a monthly basis or a bi-weekly basis, however you want to do it. And you get to keep in touch with, let's say you met with 100 people last month, you get to send it and you still have that connection. You're still keeping them updated with your progress, and sometimes sending them in the email is the best way. And next month you meet with another 200, 300, you're still managing that network. And people will get back to you. And that's something that I've done personally. I had a Substack, so I have sort of documented most of my journey starting out. I sent those newsletters to all the people that I met at certain events, or new connections, or new team members that joined. So it's really the network that you're building, and then you're just sending them updates regarding your progress. So I think if you miss that opportunity, then there's no point of actually going to networking events or meeting with new people, then you're just wasting your time, but also you're wasting others' time as well, because people expect you to reach out to them. If we're having a good conversation, I expect you to reach out to me, or, I'd reach out to you personally. So it's also about the relationship, right? You want to build strong relationships, and that'll get you most value over time. And, versus if you were to just do one touch point or two touch point, then it's just not it. You're not building a strong relationship with that person. And that's not going to give you a good value.
Of course, and you mentioned an absolutely amazing point, the idea of actively managing your network. It's not just something that you touch on and then you leave it. It's that you're actively kind of bringing it to fruition, connecting people, letting people know of how you've grown and what your plans are, where you seek to go, these sort of things. I think that's an absolutely amazing point. And, in regards to this, we've basically covered this whole episode in this perspective of conferences and networking events. I want to look at a space that's a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more different, a little bit more new, which is very popular, LinkedIn, right? I see you're very, active on LinkedIn, which is really nice. I want to hear your advice on how you can make the most of LinkedIn, because this advice is absolutely amazing. And I wanted to see if there's any sort of specific advice that you have for that space for students starting LinkedIn that are trying to get more followers, more connections, and actually use those connections. And like you said, actively manage that network that they built.
Yeah, I really appreciate LinkedIn, man. It has, networking in general, or meeting with people has helped me progress my vision, but also business as well. Because LinkedIn, what is LinkedIn, right? It is just a way to manage your network. There are a few people who are using ClickUp actually to manage their network. So you get to make a list in ClickUp on all the people that you've met and all the interactions that you've had. So you get to record all of that, so other team members can actually see that as well. It's similar to LinkedIn, but it's just for you, right? But you get to manage your network. And the biggest value of a network, I would say, or one of the biggest, is, when you're going to, few events, or when you're meeting with a ton of people, the real value actually comes later on when you've built a strong network for yourself. Because if you're just, meeting people in the AI industry, after 3 weeks, 4 weeks of actually meeting with people, you'll see that you have ton of mutuals with a new person that you want to meet with, and you can actually request an intro via LinkedIn, and you can see that on LinkedIn. So that's one of the ways I use LinkedIn, like trying to find specific people who could help me with the vision, and then seeing who they're connected to in my network, and then reaching out to them and asking them for a quick warm intro. And I think if you could do that, if you want to talk to somebody and then you can find a warm intro, that's really huge. And LinkedIn is a way to figure that out. And second, LinkedIn is huge for students to get funding, actually, because if you post about your progress on LinkedIn and you're building that network, in the other backend, a lot of people are coming across your posts. And if you, got connected with an investor and they liked that post or they commented it, it's also being shared to their network. And then it's just like it gets shared to other networks as well. And then you're getting a ton of exposure. I remember a student from a program that I did, TKS, Dental Society. So they were documented all of their progress on LinkedIn. And they posted about, the final product that they built after, building prototypes, etc., all of that. And they actually got $80,000 in funding. And, they right away, and that was definitely a good, signal for them to, focus and prioritize that project. So they did actually. So I think it can also help you, get exposure, and also just expand your network. So those are like two ways that, personally it has helped me. And I think students should do that often. So that's in case if they're, looking to become a founder or looking to get some sort of funding or grants, right, and looking to get exposure. But if you're a student, looking to get an internship, LinkedIn is still one of the best ways to actually get in touch with, program managers, or, finding out who's behind that team, or who's the lead on that project that you should reach out to. Because, in some ways, when you put in your application, they probably never came across it. I was talking to a startup. They recently came out of YC as well, Y Combinator, and they're still a startup. Like, it's been a few months since they started, 8-9 months, or a year now, I guess. But they got 3,000 applications. 3,000 applications for a role, an engineering role. So think about, Apple. Think about Microsoft, like how many applications they get. If a startup is getting 3,000 applications for an engineering role after, 12 months, what about a big corporate company? So your project manager or program manager might not come across your application. That means, and if you get rejected, that doesn't mean that, okay, they rejected it. So they probably just didn't come across it. High chances. But if you can figure out who is behind that, application, and that you can actually do that on LinkedIn when you go apply, and you can see, okay, this is the guy who posted. You can actually reach out to them on LinkedIn and send them your portfolio, send them your resume, or like a short, concise note. I'm not the best at, figuring out how to get internships, but I can definitely say, like, okay, you just got to find a specific person and reach out to them and who's behind that. And the way you can actually do that is also, go to LinkedIn, the company that you're applying to, go to their company page and look for the People's tab. And once you go to the People tab, you can actually see their whole team. And then you can actually search specific people. And when you go view their LinkedIn, and then that goes back to when I said, okay, if you want to find their email, you go to that tool called Contact That Out. It prints their email right on your page, and then you actually get to send them an email. So now you stood out of, let's say 3,000, 5,000 people, and your application was seen. So that also gives you peace, and you're likely going to hear back from them as well. So I think that's another way students can actually take advantage of LinkedIn. And that's how I've taken advantage personally.
Of course. And then behind all of that advice, one thing, and specifically my advice for all students, is if you don't have a LinkedIn, make it.
Yes.
Because I know far too many students that are sophomore, juniors, even seniors that, either don't have a LinkedIn, or their LinkedIn is so simple you don't even have a profile photo. So that's another really important thing before anything else.
Get a professional LinkedIn photo. You could do 100%. You could do it on you could do it through AI nowadays, so that shouldn't be a problem.
100%. And so now, just kind of closing off and bringing everything full circle, I wanted to hear your specific advice for a student who maybe feels intimidated by networking. What is the best way to start today?
Yeah, man. I think these are the things that everybody goes through. This is something that I personally went through a lot. Struggling to go up to people and saying, okay, this is my name and this is, why I'm here. Everybody struggles with that, and people actually understand. So it's like, that gym mindset. Everybody started somewhere, and now, they're pumped. They've got muscles and everything like that. So it's about, starting somewhere, and it's definitely, you're going to face a lot of problems. You're going to be in awkward conversations, and that's part of the journey, and you'll learn a ton, and that's actually going to give you experience, and you'll actually get to have productive conversations. First few conversations are going to be awkward right away. Everybody is going to go through that. I went through that, and I bet, Zaki, you went through that as well, 100%. I bet that. So you just got to start somewhere. 5 years ago, I didn't even know how to speak English. But then again, I forced myself and pushed myself to actually go talk to people. And that turned out great. And if you don't take on the opportunity, you might be missing out on, a whole future that you could have had, and all the collaborations that you could have had with that one person. But you missed out because you were just too scared to say hi. But if you were to, say hi, go up to them and talk, they'll understand. Even if you're not, good, or you're not able to, keep up with a conversation, they'll understand. Most of the people too. But again, that leads to so many different conversations, that leads to so many different collaboration opportunities in the future. So I think it's really up to you, and then you just gotta go for it, push for it. Nobody's else gonna do it, and enjoy the journey.
Of course.
Yeah.
So always just taking that first step, regardless of where you might be, just making sure that not only that first step, but you're consistent after that in the sequential steps that, lead to talking to more people and building an active network. Awesome. Well, Mohammed, thank you so much once again for being on the show. You've shared some absolutely priceless advice for our listeners in the realm of networking for both students, student founders, young founders, the whole space. Thank you so much once again.
Yes.
I really appreciate it. And I bet our students and, student founders, our listeners, all of them appreciate your advice too. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time, man.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me here. And if there's anybody out there listening to this and need anything else, feel free to reach out to me.
Of course. Thank you so much. I'll see you around.
Yeah,
all right.
awesome. Thank you for having me. Bye.
I'll see you.